basically what we offer is some just practical needs, right? It's really hard, I think, if you're like, hey, God loves you. And the person's like, well, I'm hungry, So it is about meeting practical needs. And then it's also about just loving people where they're at. And again, the main thing I come back to with missions or with outreach or whatever it is, it's trying to share hope. So we try to give people dignity to say, hey, like you're in a rough spot, but let's walk the journey with you and see what your life might look like if we kind of take steps in this direction. And not forcibly, but we start with love. And then if and when they're ready, introducing how can Jesus maybe be a part of this.
Welcome to another episode of the One Life podcast. We're going to dive deeper into the weekend sermon normally, but not today. Today we have a special guest on the podcast, Pastor Julie Spier.
Woo woo.
Thanks for being here. So last week, we got to talk to the three of our newest staff members. And so now we were like, okay, let's go the opposite way. Not that you're old, just
That's
so we're clear.
What I just heard.
No, not that you're old. But who's our most tenured staff member? Okay, so we're going to talk to you about the last 10 years of ministry here at One Life, the artist formerly known as Trinity. And so, but before we dive into maybe some more of the specifics, I think as our church has grown, we've had tons of new people that need to just get to know you a little bit better. So talk a little bit about your upbringing, who Julie Spier is, how you eventually got here, but first start with maybe your childhood and some unique stories.
Okay. So I was born in California. My dad was in the Air Force. So I say I'm from San Francisco, but I lived there for like 5 months or something. But I do claim San Francisco sports, which is important.
Okay.
Some of them actually. So, but I grew up military, so I kind of moved all over. Actually spent most of my upbringing in Europe, which is really great because I, from a young age, just naturally kind of learned to appreciate other cultures and things like that. So, which I think has kind of helped with my passion for missions. But so grew up Air Force. So it was hard to get really connected to church. It wasn't that church wasn't valuable to us, but there was just, it was like, we're going to the military chapel or, so like youth group and stuff like that was hard to find until we moved to Tucson. And my dad had kind of worked himself up to a rank where he got to stay for longer than just a year or two. And so my brother and I both got involved in the youth group in Tucson and loved it. I was also super involved in sports, but I just had a great youth coach who would lovingly harass me anytime that I wasn't there. And she just kind of got me more and more involved. And so right when I graduated after high school, because I was kind of headed for social work probably is what I was thinking. And I graduated, I became a volunteer youth coach. And then I think it was after my sophomore year of college, the pastor was like, hey, would you want to be the summer intern, like youth intern? And I was like, you're going to pay me to do this? Like, genuinely, you want me, you're going to pay me to do what I've already been doing, like just hang out and love with teenagers and go to camp? Like, as a 19-year-old, I was like, yeah, that sounds amazing. So then I was a summer intern and I ended up staying on for most of that next year. And then they were like, hey, we're going to do a church plant. And we want you to be the family director. And I was like, you guys have not done your research. Like, I am 20 years old. I can't even rent a van, to like take students on trips. I haven't graduated college. I have like one summer experience. So just all these reasons why I was like, this is not a good idea. Even personally, it was like all my family and friends, my community was kind of at the original church. But it was one of those moments in my life where I knew that was what I was supposed to do. I remember because the pastor was like, well, why don't you pray about it? And I was like, actually, I don't think I need to. Like, I just knew in my gut that's what I was called to do. And so I was a part of that church plant for 10 years in Tucson. And then I've actually been at One Life for the last 10 years. So incredibly proud of both churches and the ministry that got to happen there. So
random, I want to rewind all the way back. Give us your favorite spots in Europe that you lived.
Ooh, okay. So we lived in Germany and Spain. Okay. So we started in Germany, went to Spain, went back to Germany.
Okay.
So this is going to sound, it always makes me sound terrible when I say things like, well, I'm a pretty good skier because I learned on the Alps. I sound I was like, no, but like, that's just what you do. If you live in Germany, you go to ski school at the Alps. Or if anybody would come to visit, because we're in Germany, Spain, which is on either side of France. So I went to Paris like all the time. It's like, oh, I have to go to Paris again, so Sounds terrible, but that's where we went a lot. But we ended up traveling kind of all throughout Europe. I definitely love Italy. It's just a super fun culture. Venice is very unique. The idea of just jumping in a boat instead of a car. There's all sorts of history all throughout Europe. You know, you're going to see like castles and just different things like that. So it was definitely fun. In Germany, they have this thing every Saturday, like every village. It's called a Volksmarch, and they will wake up and they will go and they will hike in like kind of these like skirts. They have like a whole costume thing, and then they come back and they play music and drink beer.
Okay.
Starting at like 9 a.m.
Okay.
It's just like the town party. Yes, every Saturday. So that's how I grew up. Yeah.
So what was when you had that experience, and then they're like, "Hey, we're going to Tucson, Arizona." What were you thinking when you got there?
So actually, I moved to Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So it was even more culture shock. My dad went and worked at the Pentagon for a few years.
Wow.
So, and I was in 8th grade. Yes. So I moved from Europe to Washington, D.C. Yeah, it was a bit
You've been all over.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's a bit of a culture shock, but we survived.
Talk a little bit more about like your transition to One Life or Trinity at the time. Give us a little bit of like what was God doing in your life at that time and what eventually brought you here.
Well, I blame my husband. So backstory, Dave and I met at camp, which was terrible at the time because I was a youth pastor. Yeah. So I'm like, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And they're like, Julie, your love life is blossoming. This is so exciting. So trying to keep them...
Which is tough for you to then tell kids for the next decade. You're not going to meet the love of your life at camp.
And I had a whole spiel and it was really good. I was like, you know what? The spiel still works. You have to be legal. You know, let's be 18. And then... So Dave and I ended up at the same camp a couple times over that summer. But the first time, yes, he paid attention to me, and then he's up on stage and the girls were like, that's all they wanted to talk about. Yeah. So I was kind of like, nice guy. Could you like stop? Just go away over there. But I think we like a couple weeks in a row, we just ended up at the same camp. And so then I got home and he sent me an email, I believe. It was very professional.
Wow.
It was like, I'm wondering what your opinion was of my band. And I was like, okay.
Nice.
So I wrote him a very professional. Anyway, we started getting to know each other, but he was living in California at the time. I was getting my master's degree out there. So it just worked for us to kind of spend time together and get to know each other. But we were dating long distance. So then it kind of came to, well, if we're getting engaged, we're getting married, how are we going to figure this out? We decided that living in a house in Tucson was maybe better than living in a box in California.
Yeah.
Just financially, it was going to be a little bit easier for us. And so he moved to Tucson. But once we started having kids, like he was contracting and just leading worship at different places. But when we started having kids, we just, for our family, we wanted to do ministry together. But then we were also like, how many places have that available? You know, you need a worship pastor and a family pastor at the same time. And God opened that door, and unexpectedly, honestly, we kind of came and interviewed for Dave at the time, Trinity Baptist, to be the worship pastor. And then in the interview, the interim pastor at the time was like, actually, we need kids and students too. And so it was, again, just one of those moments, I think, that we knew this is what we've been praying for. We want to do ministry as a family. Our boys were young, but it kept us close to, I have a very involved set of grandparents. So it kept us close to family. And
that's cool.
10 years ago. So
as you look back on the last 10 years, right, talk a little bit to the listener that's like brand new to One Life. Give them a little glimpse of what you experience and some of the biggest changes that you see now every weekend versus what it was like 10 years ago.
How long is this podcast supposed to be? Okay, a little glimpse. All right, I'll summarize. So my first Sunday, and again, it was interim pastor. There were some amazing people here and such a great history from this church. But at the time that we started, there was definitely not a lot of leadership in place or staff. And so I just kind of showed up. Nobody knew who I was. Kids ministry, there was one service. I think there was maybe 200 people, and the kids would be released after worship to kind of go and everybody together. Yeah. And it was kind of, does anybody want to go with the kids today? And so I just kind of raised my hands like, I think that should be me. Yeah. So I just kind of went, and yeah, so we started with half a service of one class of kids ministry.
Hmm.
And so for me, as I walk around and we just have, departments for almost every age and all these different classes, and even the change to ask people to have kids ministry be a full service. I remember that was a big sacrifice to ask, because then they were missing church because there was only one service. But making that commitment that if we say we value kids and families, we have to have space that shows that. And we have to have programs that show that. And so there's a lot of people even still at the church that helped me make those sacrifices and those changes. But yeah, we definitely started bare minimum. We had to do a lot of remodels throughout the campus just to create spaces that were good, and then every time we grew, recreate spaces, move classes around. So yeah, it's been fun, and then we kind of reached a point where we were like, actually, we're pretty good. And then COVID hit, and then we got to basically rebuild kind of all over again from that.
Yeah.
The last year or two, I think it's kind of been in a sweet spot of like, yeah, it's just going well. We have lots of families, and it is genuinely a place where kids and students, I think, want to be. So it's been exciting now to have more staff come in, because I know that we're like ripe to go to the next level. Everything's healthy and positive, and there's a really great culture, I think. So it took some time for sure, and I'm very thankful for the people that joined the journey, because the first couple years, there was just a lot of pain that we had to walk through from the period before I came, and that's never fun. So it's very rewarding, and I'm very proud, but very thankful when I walk around and see ministry now. So
that's good.
Yeah.
So obviously, like, students and kids have been a huge part of your ministry and where your heart's at, but also a big part of your ministry has been missions and taking teams on mission trips, student trips, adult trips, all that kind of stuff. So speak into your heart for missions and how that has kind of played a massive role into your new role to be our missions, our outreach pastor. And we'll talk a little bit about the Porch too, but speak into a little bit like, what has the last 10 years looked like for missions at the church, and how have you seen that propel as well?
Yeah. So I've always loved missions. Back when I was a high school senior, again, that youth coach that was really involved in my life invited me to go on a mission trip. And I'd been to Mexico a few times. This trip was going to be to Nicaragua. And it's just kind of part of my story. But my brother ended up being diagnosed with cancer the day before we were going to go on that trip. And he was going to go with me. And so, it just kind of was very rattling as a student to start to process like life and death and your faith at a much, much deeper level. And I feel like I got told that information. I went on the mission trip. I got super sick like the first day. And so I was just in this room by myself, and the Lord and I had some words. Mostly I had some words, actually. He was on the receiving end, but just very raw, and I felt like it was kind of that moment of my faith became real. And as I was going through what I felt like were difficult circumstances, then to walk around and just see people in poverty, but more importantly than physical poverty, like spiritual poverty, and just experiencing difficulty without hope. And I think hope makes all the difference. And so just kind of deciding, like, if my faith is real, then this is what it's going to be all about. And so I've always loved young people, but I've loved the opportunity to expose and kind of break ignorance and expose young people to what's going on around the world, and what does it actually mean to be the church outside of the church walls. So missions in my own life were huge. And then the opportunity to kind of not even build missions, because really when I started here, I wasn't asked to do missions. I was doing students and kids, and I had a few ladies. They still are at this church, and they came and just marched into my office and were like, "We want to do mission trips." And I was like, "Great, I love mission trips. Let's do it." So we just started a youth mission trip down to Tijuana. And God just kind of worked from there on forming the partnership that we have with Pastor Tori and Pastor Daniel. But missions has been a part of Trinity and now One Life for their entire existence. So it was really easy to kind of, hey, let's get missions going again. And I think we have such great partnerships now that are exciting to be a part of. And I love the opportunity to just take people, especially for their first time, and just see what God does through them, yes, but also in them, like the work that he's able to do in our own hearts. I've loved taking my own family. So I take my kids every year on the Mexico trip, and I started taking Sophie. I think she was like 4, I was like, here's a paintbrush, girlfriend. But just the conversations that I've been able to have with them because they've actually seen it.
Yeah.
I took Owen on the youth trip to Togo, and it's funny. My kids know in my house, like, there's no complaining about school, because the line that they will get is, well, do you want to go work in a field for your food today? Like, something along those lines is going to come out. But like, Owen saw that with his own eyes. Like, that's not just something that I make up. He's like, no, that's real.
Yeah.
Like, there are kids that don't get to go to school. So this is a privilege. So I'm always like, you don't have to love it, but we will appreciate it. There's such perspective, I think, for us as Christ followers that comes from mission, but also the work that we're able to do. And for me, like, I can't help but do it. Like, when I think about worship and I think about what the word says, and then I know the hurt and the people that don't have hope, it's exciting for me.
Give us a little bit of a glimpse. And missions is unique in the fact that you guys plan way ahead compared to every other department, right? You have to. So 2026, 2027, what are you most excited about? Trips we're taking or things we're doing that people can plan for or get connected with?
Yeah. So we do plan so far ahead because, needing passports and trying to raise money and things like that. But that's also great because I feel like you can kind of set your mind on a trip and then have the time to kind of figure it out with your calendar and your finances. So yeah, for 2026, and actually right now we have registration going on for a few more weeks for our Mexico trip. And again, that trip is great because anybody can go. I took Sophie when she was 4. I've taken, people even older than me. So since we've established I'm old, but just a wide range of people from age, but also experience level. But what I love about that trip is we meet a practical need, like just building a house for somebody, and it changes their lives instantly to just have a safe place for their family to be. But we also do a lot of relational ministry. And we have great relationships with the pastors. So every year we go back, we're seeing the families that we built the year before and able to connect and pray together and things like that. So that's a wonderful trip, and registration is happening right now. So I'd love to have more people sign up for that one. You do need a passport, but again, you have the time to kind of figure that out because the trip isn't actually till March. And then after that, we're going to start doing a couple trips a year to the Apache Indian Reservation, which is super close. So this trip is kind of with this vision of let's try to remove every obstacle to getting on the mission field. Because some of those obstacles I know are real for people. Like I don't have a few $1,000s. I don't have 10 days to take off work. I can't travel out of the country. Whatever it might be, is say, okay, then give me one day. Give me one day. And literally an hour from where we live, there is desperate need. Poverty levels similar to actually, Tijuana, Mexico, and lots of projects and ways for us to come alongside people. So that one, we've just been like, hey, get up early on a Saturday. We drive over, we serve all day, and then we're back Saturday night. So we'll be doing that a couple different times. I think we've got it lined up for April 25th will be the first one in the spring. And then we also are doing a Togo trip next fall. So Togo is definitely our furthest trip, but that's our partnership with TTI. I actually just got back from the TTI conference, which is our Timothy initiative, this idea to put a church in every village across the world. And it's crazy because they color code it. So red means no believer, no church. And to just see an entire country and all the different villages that are red, just 0 believers. So just 0 hope. Is astounding. And so our missionaries there are partnered with TTI and just trying to take the gospel to every village. And they have amazing goals of when they're trying to do that and how they're trying to do that. And so it's a privilege, I think, to be a part of that project. And we'll go and take a trip, probably like September, October of 2026. And around the same time, we're going to do a trip to the Dream Center in California. This is a very similar ministry to the Porch of just trying to minister to people who have been involved in drug abuse, homelessness, sex trafficking. They're trying to turn their lives around. And so there's a lot of street ministry, service projects at the Dream Center. But that's an incredible trip as well. And those will happen kind of the same time, like October of 2026. So
Nice.
we're excited to be increasing the amount of opportunities. And I think next year we have a trip to every single one of our partners. So
Wow. That's really cool.
yeah.
So you just mentioned it. Speak into the Porch for a little bit. What is the Porch?
Yeah.
When did it start? Give us a little bit of like the vision behind it, how it started, all that kind of stuff, and then just what it does each and every week.
Okay. Yeah. So the Porch, I mean, the way I like to say it is basically the church's extension into the community. So it's a community center. It's an outreach center. We had the vision, a couple years ago, and Pastor Jared was talking about it a lot. There was a lot of enthusiasm behind it, and we were looking for a place to start it. And that just didn't come to fruition until we decided to use the house on the side of our campus. And so we started remodeling it. I was asked to be a part of it at the beginning of this year. And we just kind of decided, you know what, we could take another year to kind of do all the prep work and some of the partnerships with food banks and stuff. We just kind of stepped out in faith a little bit. We opened in April, and we were like, we'll just do all of that as we start. And it's just been incredible because we're already meeting the needs of people, but it's growing very quickly, which is exciting problems to have. But basically what we offer is some just practical needs, right? It's really hard, I think, if you're like, hey, God loves you, and the person's like, well, I'm hungry,
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to meet some of those practical, like, you need help with some of these things.
Yeah.
So we have a food pantry, toiletries, clothing for like kids, men's, women. And so they can come and they earn points basically by participating in different programs that we offer. And then they can use those points to receive those things. So it is about meeting practical needs. And then it's also about just loving people where they're at. And again, the main thing I come back to with missions or with outreach or whatever it is, it's trying to share hope. So we try to give people dignity to say, hey, like, you're in a rough spot, but let's walk the journey with you and see what your life might look like if we kind of take steps in this direction. And not forcibly, but we start with love. And then if and when they're ready, introducing how can Jesus maybe be a part of this? And so a lot of our programs are based around things like, let's teach you how to do an interview and, write a resume and things like that. So you can get a job so that maybe a year or two, things kind of look different. So, that's what the Porch is. It's open right now on Fridays. And we've been having about 80 to 90 people come every Friday.
Wow.
It's funny because they come earlier and earlier every week. They're just anxious to get in and to shop. But we have some that just, they're homeless and they come and they just hang out the whole time. Because it's just a safe place for them to be. And what I really love is that some of them have started coming to church. So we have a guy in the last 3 weeks, he has walked, and he's got a walker, and everything that he owns is on that walker. But he's come to church the last 3 weeks.
Awesome.
And really enjoys the snacks. I haven't broken it to him yet that those aren't an every week thing. We'll come back to that.
Movies fans.
Yeah.
Found a jackpot of a church here.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
that's good.
Yeah.
All right. What would you say lastly here to the listener that's like, how can I help? Right? Like God's even throughout the midst of this podcast, or maybe they've seen some stuff we're doing and they're just trying to figure out what's something I can do to contribute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's probably a couple of different things. First and foremost, on our website, if you go to the Porch page, we have like a, hey, volunteer here form. If you fill that out, that kind of lets us know, hey, you want to be a part of the team. And there's different teams that we have. So we have a prep team, which is all the stuff that's needed for the Porch to be ready to be open on Friday. So maybe you're really good at organization, behind the scenes. I joke, so we have a gal that helps at the Porch, and she like loves cleaning. I'm like, all right, weirdo, like, welcome to the prep team, So you like that is very important so that the Porch is successful on Fridays. So sorting the clothes, organizing them, restocking the shelves. We have an outreach team. So they go out and, a lot of us get kind of nervous. It's a little bit intimidating maybe to approach somebody that we don't know. The outreach team are the people that are like, hey, hey, how's it going? Just very like, I'm going to go have conversation with people at parks, at bus stops, on the streets, and they have conversation. They give out hygiene kits and stuff like that, but they also invite people to come to the porch. And then we have our porch team, which is kind of running the porch on Fridays. So from hospitality to like our cashiers to data entry. So they're helping while the porch is open to kind of handle the flow of all the neighbors. We also have a team now on Thursdays of people who are teaching classes, people who want to be mentors, people who want to do resource appointments. So if somebody mentions, hey, I really need a job or I'm looking for a place to live, we set up appointments for them, and we have people that try to help with kind of the next level assistance. So all of those things are available, and you can sign up or you can register for those on the website. And then if maybe it's like, I can't, maybe make like a weekly commitment. We also do serve days. So like we're doing one this Thursday of just, hey, once every 6 weeks, we have a bunch of stuff that we need to do, come help. So those are opportunities. And then honestly, we've started announcing about the porch and services and asking people to take a bag with a list inside and just fill the bag with those items needed. It has been incredible both times. This last weekend, all I did was like load bags into my car and back and forth to the porch, and it is stuffed over there. But the amount of people that we saw starting in about July or August, we just had a huge jump in the amount of people coming per week. And we honestly didn't have enough donations. And so this has been a way to kind of stock the shelves, especially as the holidays are coming, for people to be able to shop. And so it's so cool when they walk in, they're like, shampoo, ranch. So it's just a blessing that our church has stepped up, and I think it's a way to merge the church and the porch of, hey, this is an extension into our community. Then I want to be a part of that, and people have been willing to do that, and that's been hugely helpful.
Love it.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, thanks, Pastor Julie. Thanks for coming on the podcast and getting to hear about all our mission stuff. And it's fun to look back over the last 10 years and see all the cool stuff you and Pastor Dave have been a part of. But I appreciate it. And
I got some stories, but
our slogan fits perfectly with what you just talked about as we kind of end the podcast. And that is that the church is not a building that we sit in, but it's a movement we get to be a part of to reach one more life for Jesus.
Love it.